All right, let's dive right in. Today, we're tackling a case, and it's one of those that really makes you question everything you think you know about justice. We're talking about a man who's been in prison for 23 years for murder. But now, well, now it looks like the entire case against him might have been built on a house of cards. So, this is the man at the heart of the story, Omar Benguit. And these are his words. Now, here's the thing. He's actually served enough time to be considered for parole, but there's a catch, a big one. To get out, he has to admit he did it, and he absolutely refuses. So what do you do with that? Is he just a stubborn, guilty man? Or is this what true innocence looks like? Just let that number sink in. 23 years. That's more than 2 decades of a person's life spent behind bars. I mean, whatever the real story is here, an unbelievable price has already been paid. So let's get into it. How on earth did we get to this point? All right. Section 1. A 23-year-old murder. The killing of Jong-Ok Shin. So, let's go back. The year is 2002. We're in Bournemouth, a seaside town in England. A young woman, a 26-year-old student from South Korea named Jong-Ok Shin, her friends called her Oki, is just walking home. It's late. And then, tragedy strikes. She's attacked and brutally stabbed to death. Section 2, a case built on testimony. The prosecution's singular foundation. You know, when you think about a murder investigation, your mind immediately goes to things like DNA, right? Or fingerprints, CCTV, solid physical evidence. But here's the thing about the case against Omar Benguit. There was none of that. Zero. The entire thing, from start to finish, was built on something much, much shakier. What people said they saw. So let's just lay it all out. No CCTV connecting Benguit to the crime scene. No forensics, nothing. The whole case was built on eyewitness testimony, and at the very center of it all was one main witness, a woman, a known drug addict, who, for legal reasons, we're just going to call BB. And believe me, her story was everything. It was the linchpin holding the whole prosecution together. Okay, so this is where it gets really wild. On the left, you've got BB's story, which she told the jury. She claims she drove Benguit and 2 other guys to the murder scene. But then look at the right. This is the reality, what the police actually knew at the time. Oki, in her dying words, said there was just one attacker, and he was masked. BB said they stopped at a BP garage. Police checked the CCTV. They weren't there. She said she drove Benguit to a crack house to clean up. They checked that CCTV too. Nothing. Her story was falling apart before it even got to court. Okay, Section 3. When witnesses recant, the collapse of the prosecution's support. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but it couldn't have all been on this one witness, right? And you'd be right. The prosecution had other witnesses to back up what supposedly happened after the murder. But here's the problem. That entire support system, it is now totally, and I mean totally, crumbled. Just look at this pattern. It is, well, it's pretty astonishing. So the police go to this local crack house, right? They interview 5 people. And at first, every single one of them says the same thing. Nope, didn't see Benguit that night. Simple enough. But then, months go by. The police go back and re-interview those same 5 people. And what happens? All five of them suddenly have a brand new story. And it's the exact same story. Now, they all say they saw Benguit at the house, covered in blood. I mean, what are the odds? So you have to ask yourself, why? Why would 5 different people all change their stories in the exact same dramatic way? Well, one of them, a guy named Andy Miller, has an answer. He says, I felt as though the police pressurized me into saying something that wasn't true. He claims they basically used his criminal record against him, telling him he'd better lie for them or they'd charge him with other crimes. He says he was coerced. And here's the kicker. Andy Miller? He is not alone, not by a long shot. When you actually count them up, all the key prosecution witnesses who have now either taken back their stories, admitted they were pressured to lie, or had their testimony completely undermined, you get to this number, 15. That's not just a crack in the foundation. The entire foundation of the case against Omar Benguit has just disintegrated. Okay, Section 4, the buried alibi. New evidence of innocence. So, as if all of that wasn't enough, the story gets even crazier. We're not just talking about witnesses changing their stories now. A recent deep dive into the case has found something that might be even more explosive. We're talking about a potential alibi. An alibi that it seems the police might have known about right from the very start. Okay, pay close attention to the timing here because this is absolutely crucial. So So Aki is murdered around 2:30 in the morning. Got it? Then just 25 minutes later at 2:55 a.m., some grainy CCTV footage captures a man who looks a lot like Benguit. He's at a public phone box about a mile away from the crime scene. But here's the clincher. Phone records prove that at that exact time, from that exact phone box, a call was made to, you guessed it, Benguit's drug dealer. Now think about it. If he was at that phone box, there is no way he could have been at the crack house cleaning up blood, which is what the prosecution's entire story depended on.
So, you've got what looks like a rock-solid alibi, right? It puts Benguit somewhere else at the most critical moment, and it totally blows up the prosecution's timeline. So the huge question is, if this alibi could prove his innocence, what did the police do with it?
And the answer is, well, it's deeply, deeply troubling. It turns out police records show they knew all about it. They knew the guy on the CCTV looked like Benguit. They knew the call went to his dealer, and yet they appear to have just buried it. They didn't follow up. The lead just vanished. Now, this isn't just a wild theory. A criminologist, Barry Loveday, who has spent 20 years studying this case, he puts it very bluntly. He doesn't think this was just a mistake or incompetence. He thinks the police were being highly selective. And his final conclusion? It's chilling. He says, in my opinion, Omar was framed. All right, Section 5, shadow of another killer. Was there another suspect? So that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Why? Why would police go to such lengths to frame one man? Well, the answer might have nothing to do with Omar Benguit at all. It might have everything to do with another man. A man who lived just a few streets away from where Oki was killed, and a man the police already knew was dangerous. This man's name was Danilo Restivo, and get this, he lived just 3 streets away from the murder scene. He was actually an early suspect in Oki's murder. In fact, police in Italy had warned the Dorset Police about him, because he was wanted for a murder back there. So why did they drop him as a suspect? His girlfriend gave him an alibi. But here's the thing. Danilo Restivo would later be convicted of 2 other absolutely brutal murders, one of which happened just 4 months after Oki was killed. And suddenly, you have a possible motive for everything we've seen. Think about the pressure the police were under. They had been warned about a killer living in their town. They failed to stop him, and he killed again. So, getting a conviction for Oki's murder, any conviction, and getting it fast, well, that might have seemed like the only way to control the public outrage and the fallout from their own failure. Okay, last section here, justice in question, where the case stands today. So after all of this, after 23 years and all these shocking revelations, where do things actually stand for Omar Benguit right now? Let's quickly wrap up what we know. So let's just recap the huge problems with this conviction. You have the main witness, whose story is completely contradicted by CCTV. You have 15 supporting witnesses who have either recanted or been totally discredited. You have a credible alibi that was just ignored by the police. And on top of it all, you have a viable alternative suspect, a known serial killer who wasn't properly investigated. It's a lot. So what's happening now? Well, there's a body in the UK called the Criminal Cases Review Commission, and they are officially looking into all of this new evidence. But, it's not going to be easy. Benguit has already had 2 appeals dismissed by the courts, which makes the legal battle ahead a really steep uphill climb. And so that leaves us right here with one final, deeply unsettling question to think about. If all the evidence that was used to convict a man is now gone, if every single pillar holding up that guilty verdict has been knocked down, what's left of justice in this case?